Welcome to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I am joined by my partner, Kevin Stone, who has just finished licking his chops after having some fruit snacks. Kevin, how are you this evening?
Sugar free. I'm staying healthy. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I'm glad that you're having sugar-free fruit snacks. That's a good thing. As we get older in our advanced age, we need to incorporate more sugar-free, less calorie, more natural stuff into our diets. And Kevin Stone is doing that for you, ladies and gentlemen. He is modeling good behavior by having sugar-free fruit snacks. Now, before we get started on tonight's show and we move on from Stone and his fruit snacks, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you're in the market to sell your current home, purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance, give Herb Devine a call, 781 254 2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. With over 27 years of experience, Herb has the knowledge and the know-how to guide you through this process. You need experience on your side when you're buying a home. You need Herb Devine on your side. Again, give him a call at 781 254 2846 or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, Stone, let's start the conversation as usual here talking about the Patriots. Mike Vrabel winning his first game as head coach of the New England Patriots yesterday in thrilling fashion. Patriots beat the Dolphins 33-27. It's their first win in Miami since 2019. And I'm not really going to get into the game here. John Lyons and I dissected it in the Patriots Pulse post-game show yesterday. But I want to ask you a simple question, Kevin. Is this a big win for this football team?
Yeah, it's huge. And I wrote this yesterday as part of my game story. You know, you look back at last year and everybody was pumped up for the first win with Gerard Mayo, as you should be. But that game is much different. Yesterday, you faced a ton of adversity and you worked through it, and you found a way to win. That game in Cincinnati last year was good, yeah. Nice to get off on the right foot. But that was an easy game. Like, Gerard Mayo got a Gatorade bath. They had a chance to celebrate that win. That was a pulse-pounding, nail-biting finish yesterday with ebbs and flows in 95-degree heat. So I thought yesterday was more important than last year's first win, just in terms of the messaging from Mike Vrabel getting through early on. And then you had Drake May be Drake May, or the Drake May that we all hope he is, and make some huge throws. I thought that throw to Stevenson, aside from the play in Tennessee last year, was his biggest moment yet. You can make the argument it's his biggest moment, but and Stevenson made a hell of a catch. But there's so many things to like from yesterday. Yeah, you had 12 penalties. I know the coach and you must have been pissed about that. But overall, and again, special teams wasn't great. I get it. Defense, you still only gave up 20 points again. They had the punt return too. So overall, I thought it was huge in terms of messaging, in terms of buy-in. You can't go to 0-2 in that spot. You just couldn't. That Miami team was ready to quit early on in that game, and you found a way. So hopefully they can build off it. And yeah, I think it's really, really big.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important win. I don't think it's as big of a win as a lot of people have talked about around here. To your point, it's nice not going 0-2, but I also don't want to make this be this monumental victory that somehow is
it's
going
week 2.
Right, it's week 2. Exactly. Let's keep things in perspective here. I mean, is it nice to go down there and get the win for the first time since 2019? Yes. Was it important to get Vrabel that first win and get that out of the way? Yes. Did you want to avoid starting 0-2? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, it's a nice win. They did everything they could to give it away. You mentioned the 12 penalties. I thought defensively, yeah, they gave up 20 points, but that's misleading. I don't think they played well defensively. I thought their tackling was atrocious, both on defense and on special teams. You give up the 74-yard punt return for a touchdown. Yeah, that kind of gets negated on the ensuing kickoff with Antonio Gibson's 90-yard kickoff return. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, yes, they won. They showed resiliency. They showed toughness. But they did not play well, not in my opinion at least. I thought they played well in the first quarter, and I thought they played well at times in the second half, but they didn't put a complete game together. So, yes, it's nice to get the win. They improved to 1-1. You give Vrabel his first win, but this team is going to have to play a hell of a lot better next week if you're going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Despite Pittsburgh coming in at 1-1 and getting their doors blown off yesterday by Seattle, you do have Aaron Rodgers coming in. You do have an offense that has the potential to make some big plays. Yeah, their defense has struggled, which is a good thing for the Patriots, but I think you're going to need to play a much cleaner game next week if you want to win. Nonetheless, important win for them. And of course, after the game, Patriots media recorded Mike Vrabel seemingly giving everybody and their mother a game ball. It was a pretty cool moment to see. And I think it underlines the reality of where this organization is right now, that wins like this mean so much, right? We used to take games like this for granted. In fact, if nothing else, we used to be critical of Belichick and Brady. How could you allow a team like this to hang around? They almost beat you, blah, blah, blah. They got to play better. I think what we saw in that locker room yesterday, Kevin, underscores the importance of a win like this for this franchise because, let's face it, coming off a back-to-back 4-13 seasons, you haven't had a lot of moments like this. It was nice to see.
Yeah, no, and again, I wrote this yesterday too. Given the last 5 years, you take anything at this point. Any win you get, you celebrate. Not like it's a division title, but the game ball thing, it is what it is. I always thought there was a limit for game balls, frankly.
So did I, but apparently he was giving everybody a game ball yesterday. So maybe there isn't a limit when it comes to the Patriots. Who knows?
He addressed the tackling today. But like I said, yes, they gave up 27, but you really only gave up 20 because of the punt return. So, yeah, the tackling was bad, but...
Yeah, but you can't look at it like that. You really can't. I mean, 20 points isn't great either, but the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, it's going to show that they gave up 27 points because, yes, you gave up those 7 points on special teams, but they still count towards your defense. So they gave up 27 points.
So even against that offense, you're not okay with only giving up 20?
No, because I think Tagovailoa has struggled. Tyreek Hill is a mess. Jalen Waddle proved yesterday that he could still be an elite playmaker. Yeah. Devon Achane is a nice weapon. They use him out of the backfield in the passing game, and they run the football, but they don't run the football particularly well, and that was kind of Mike McDaniel's calling card. And maybe if this were 2 years ago, I might agree with you, but now I think the Dolphins are a train wreck, so I don't put that much stock into that.
So that's fair. It was a game of, stupid football in that third and fourth quarter.
It was. And again, they did everything they could to give that game away. I mean, Miami shouldn't have been in that game when you consider the fast start that the Patriots came out to. If the Patriots played more consistently after taking that 12-0 lead and kept their foot on the gas, they would have, I don't know if I'd say they would have blown them out, but they probably would have beat them by a couple of scores. Instead, they take the foot off the gas. The pass rush was inconsistent. The secondary continues to struggle. There was a lot there to like, but in my opinion, there was also a lot there that they need to fix.
Yeah, no, I agree. And ultimately, you hope they build off it, especially at home this weekend. Because if you can get this one, Carolina's terrible, and now you're looking at 3-1. And people are just hoping you got.
Which I think at the beginning of the season or even this offseason, to your point, if you had told people that after 4 weeks they'd be 3-1, people would, A, take that, and B, they probably would have thought you beat the Raiders and lost in Miami because they seemingly always lose in Miami. But if you are 3-1 after 4 weeks, you just flip those first two, I think people would gladly take that.
Huge, because then you go to Buffalo for a Sunday night. But then after that, things get easier. So for those of us in the the nine-ish win group, if you start out 3-1 here, that's a hell of a start to Vrabel's era.
It is. Ken Matthias joins the show. Thanks for checking in, Ken. Appreciate you checking in. As always, how impressed, he's saying, were you guys with the performance of the Patriots winning Miami yesterday? Secondary remains an issue. It's a nice win for them. I'm not going to make it more than it is. And yes, I agree with you, Ken. The secondary does remain an issue. Clearly, they miss Christian Gonzalez, but
he's got to get on the field, man.
He's got to get on the field, and it sounds like from what Vrabel said today, it could potentially happen this week, TBD. But they need to play better on the back end, and they need to play better up front too. Yeah, they had the 5 sacks yesterday, but, I mean, Milton Williams picks up those 2 sacks late. The pass rush is not consistent. It shows up on the stat sheet, and I will give them credit. It happens at an opportune time. But outside of that, their pass rush has not been consistent through 2 games.
I agree. And on Gonzalez, if you watch and listen to his tone today, I still don't think there's a shot he plays. I think it was more so starting to put it on Christian Gonzalez. That's just my opinion on it. But he said there's a chance. But again, if you read the quotes, if you actually listen and watch, sort of his demeanor and tone, I still don't think there's a very high chance he plays this week.
Yeah. Well, they need him back. I mean, you saw it yesterday. And again, look, the safeties have struggled through 2 weeks. But the reality is you give up 9 plays of over 20 yards 2 weeks ago to the Raiders. You gave up a couple this week as well. They need to clean things up in the secondary. And again, it's easy to point to Gonzalez and say, well, if he were there, they would be better. And I understand that. But it's not all Gonzalez. They still need to play cleaner. I mean, again, I think what it comes down to for me is you got to get him back. And yes, they need to play cleaner. But at the end of the day, you've seen it through 2 weeks. The biggest thing is they clearly miss him. They need him back. Ken checks back in. He says, Harold Landry has been a bright spot on this defense throughout 2 games. Who else might need to step up on defense? Well, Ken, that's a very good question. And again, thank you for checking in. I think it's the secondary and the linebackers. Linebackers have not played well. Christian Ellis did not play well yesterday. Left the game with dehydration. Yeah, Marte Mapu had that pick there at the end, which proved to be huge. But again, I go back to what I've said all along. Their back 7, even with a healthy Christian Gonzalez, I felt coming into the season had some question marks, especially with a new scheme. I think you've seen that so far.
I put Robert Spillane on that list, maybe top of it. He's your emotional leader, but I don't think he's been great. He's supposed to be a tackling machine. He's missing tackles yesterday in the open field. So I'd like to see more out of him. And then to your point, the pass rush. I'd like to see more out of Barmore and Milton Williams as well.
Yeah, and Williams had the 2 sacks yesterday. But to your point,
they were timely.
To your point, the pass rush needs to be better. It needs to be more consistent. And look, Harold Landry's been terrific.
Yeah, and
you have nothing to complain about. I think K'Lavon Chaison's been really good.
Yeah.
But to your point, Kevin, that interior pass rush needs to be better. They need to get home more. And I think you started to see it yesterday with Milton Williams. And I think you're going to start to see him get more comfortable, him be able to play more snaps. He's not used to playing this many snaps. I think he's physically starting to get comfortable with that. And as he gets more comfortable, I think you're going to see an improved pass rush. Their front 7 doesn't concern me. What concerns me is the back end. You're giving up too many big plays for 2 weeks. I think that's a combination of things. Like we said, no Gonzalez, new scheme, guys maybe, I don't want to say being out of position, but certainly not matching up. They have to work through some of those kinks. But I think once they do and once you get Gonzalez back, my expectation is that the secondary will be better.
Yeah, just on Landry, he's been doing this since camp. He's been their most consistent player.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been flying off the edge literally since OTAs, really. I know it's hard to kind of judge from there, but he has been their most consistent player so far.
Yeah, on defense. Absolutely. I mean, and look, let's not kid ourselves. The Patriots haven't had this type of a pass rush the last couple of years between the players that they added this offseason and the scheme change. I think that's why you've seen the improvement in the pass rush. I mean, they have 9 sacks through 2 games. That's pretty damn good. I know that we're so hyper-focused on the final score and how the secondary's playing and whatnot, but to rack up 9 sacks in 2 games, that's pretty good. I mean, that's if they stay on this pace, they're going to be top 3 in the league in sacks. And I don't know, when was the last time we could say that? It's been a long time when it comes to the Patriots. Obviously, again, like I said, the Miami Dolphins, hard team to read, get blown out week 1, played much better yesterday. They go to Buffalo on Thursday night. If they lose that one, Mike McDaniel might have to find his own way home. He might not end up on the plane. You got to give them credit for hanging around, but I think at the end of the day, it was more a byproduct of what the Patriots weren't doing than it was a byproduct of what the Dolphins were doing.
Well, I do think there's something to be said for not out-stupiding. That's not a word, obviously.
No,
but finding a way
considering the source.
Correct. But this is the kind of game we talked about before the year. Like, you should be able to beat the dumber teams. You almost were the dumber team, but you found a way to win. If you are going to get to 7, 8, 9 wins, those are the kind of games you have to win. Have to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think this week, to a degree, could fall into that category potentially as well, at least the next 2 weeks. Obviously, you don't want to put the cart before the horse, which brings me to my next point. Pittsburgh Steelers, they roll into town this week. Is this a game? And they lost 31-17 yesterday, but is this a game we could expect them to win?
So that's such a hard question just because I don't expect them to win every game or any game, really. It's just sort of I'm in toss-up mode with them right now. Look, Aaron Rodgers better than anybody in New England. Well, in terms of, watching him and all that for years. He's not the same guy, but he still scares me. He still has a hell of an arm.
He's still Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, right.
And he's got an elite level receiver that he's playing with in DK Metcalf.
Correct. And we just talked about the secondary. I don't know who covers DK Metcalf, frankly, if you don't have Christian Gonzalez. And again, I don't think you will. So, now I know you're not a big atmosphere and all that guy, but I do put stock into the whole Hall of Fame weekend thing. I do think there's sort of just a different energy in the building. And you also have to consider the fan base is now going to be at a game coming off an exciting win. So that place is going to be jacked up. It's not going to be, oh, woe is me. Here we go again. Sort of tepid going into the stadium. That fan base is going to be expecting a win against an old school rival. So I'd expect the energy in that building to be pretty high as well early on. It's throwback week. You'll get the red Patriot jerseys, like all of that. And I do put a little bit of stock into it. I know it doesn't win you games, but offensively, if that's what they look like, they can score with anybody, So I do think they end up winning, expecting them to win. I know it's nitpicking the way you asked, but expecting to win is tough, but I do think they will end up pulling it out. It's hard not to be worried about Aaron Rodgers, though. It's still, even in name only, it's still Aaron Rodgers.
No, it's Aaron Rodgers. That secondary hasn't played well enough to instill confidence in you or anybody else. And I think the other part of it is it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're well coached. They're going to come into town. I don't want to say desperate because it's only week 3, but you're kind of in the same boat as them. Both teams are 1-1. Their defense has struggled, which as a Patriots fan should give you hope that the offense can build off of last week and carry it over into this game against a struggling defense. I think for me, look, can they win this game? Yes. I think it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be a close game. I see it being a 23-20 game. Of course, the biggest key here is going to be, can you get to Aaron Rodgers, disrupt his timing, throw him off his spot, and not allow him to get the ball to DK Metcalf, not allow him to get the ball to Pat Fryermuth, not allow him to get the ball to his backs. Because that's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. He wants to spread the ball around. Now, he's not playing in the West Coast offense. Arthur Smith does not run the West Coast offense. He runs more of a traditional multiple offense. But some of the concepts that Rodgers likes, that he ran in Green Bay, that he ran with the Jets, you're going to see some of those concepts in the passing game. And the Patriots secondary is going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to need to play really well. To your point earlier, that pass rush is going to need to get there and get there on a consistent basis. And then offensively, this Pittsburgh defense right now is a wounded animal. You've got to attack them. Don't let them attack you. They've given up over 30 points in their first game. They're not nearly as advertised defensively, nowhere near as good. Trust me, I know I have them in one of my leagues. They've killed me the last 2 weeks. All that being said, from an offensive standpoint, I want to see growth here. I want to see them carry over what they did this week to next week. I want to see Drake May build off of this week's performance next week. I think if he can do that, they can run the football at an even better clip than they did this week, and they can make big plays like they did yesterday in the passing game. There's no reason why they shouldn't win this football game. And I know, and a lot of people point to Pittsburgh's past history here. That was a long time ago. Let's not compare these Steelers to the Roethlisberger Steelers during the Belichick-Brady era. 2 different organizations. I know Tomlin's the coach, and the defense is still the same per se, but the Steelers are in a different place right now than they were in those years. Those years, they were a perennial Super Bowl contender. Now they're a perennial playoff team. I mean, you can't say the last 5 years the Steelers have been a Super Bowl contender. So they're in a different place, which is why I think ultimately on paper, this is a game the Patriots can win, and I think this is a game they should win. Like I said, I just think it'll be close.
Yeah, just on the Patriots offense, you need a better performance out of your receivers. Ramondre Stevenson was your leading receiver yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
it's not
against
good.
Pittsburgh,
And look, I'll say this. That was nice to see out of Stevenson. This is what he
sure,
could be. That was his best performance really since 2022. I don't
maybe of
think
his
that that's a
career.
stretch. Yeah, maybe for his career.
Yeah,
5 catches, 88 yards, 11 carries, 54 yards. This is what he could be in this system. And we know running backs thrive in this offense. We've seen it through the years with the James Whites, the Kevin Falks, and the Dion Lewises, the Rex Burkheads, the Danny Woodheads. We've seen it. So Stevenson could have a huge year in this offense. And I think yesterday was also a reminder, let's not throw him away. People have been so quick to
yeah, guilty.
anoint
Yeah,
Travion Henderson as the starting running back of this team, that at some point he's going to be the starting running back, and he very well could. But I think Stevenson reminded us yesterday that if he's healthy and he's taking care of the football, and that's always a question mark with him, if he's taking care of the football, he can be potentially a top 10 back in this league, in this system. Like I said, we saw this yesterday.
yeah. You need more out of your receivers overall. But just before we get too far off of it, what did you think of Josh McDaniels yesterday? I thought he had a really good day.
I thought he did a great job.
Yeah,
I thought he got into a rhythm early. I thought he was in his comfort zone. I thought he called the game the way he normally would call a game. I thought at
especially
times
early.
against, yeah, I thought at times against the Raiders, because they were playing from behind, not early, but they were playing from behind from the standpoint of they weren't making enough big plays, and they needed to go 80 yards. I think that kind of took him out of his rhythm a little bit. I think he was more in rhythm early. They got into a rhythm as an offense. May got into a rhythm, and they were able to move the ball early. And I think that allowed him to kind of cut it loose and be the play caller that we know he can be. So I thought he did a really good job. I thought it was vintage McDaniels in many ways. I love the game plan. I love the diversity of the formations, the personnel groupings, the different plays. I thought he did a really good job of keeping Miami's defense off balance. Now, all that being said, that's the key there, Kevin. Miami's defense, they suck. Their defense sucks. And Anthony Weaver, while he did a great job here last year when Miami came up here shutting down the Patriots, of course, Miami won both games against the Patriots last year. This defense is not that group. The secondary is an abomination. They've had a ton of injuries, a lot of new faces. Pass rush hasn't been as good. So part of McDaniel's success is they took advantage of that defense, but it doesn't matter, man. It's a National Football League. You got to play who they put in front of you. I thought he did a really nice job.
Yeah, no, I did too. And again, especially early, he got Drake comfortable, and that was huge.
Yeah,
You
it
could
is.
see it. You could
Yeah.
see it. So, the only thing I'm worried about again is the receivers. Like your running back can't be your leading receiver if you are going to be the team.
No, but remember last week it was
they
Booty, and look, I think Stephon Diggs is going to become a bigger part of this offense as we go along here. He's still, look, he's coming off the ACL, still trying to get on the same page with May, still trying to figure his way around this system. He'll end up being a factor for this team before long. And I agree, your running back can't lead you in receiving, and I suspect as the year goes on, if everything goes according to plan, he won't. He'll be probably one of your top 3 leading receivers in any given week, but he won't be the guy that leads the team.
Last thing before I forget, Pop Douglas, is it Efton Chisholm time yet?
I don't know. I know that the local media has been jockeying Efton Chisholm now for 2 months, and of course, everybody and their mother discovered him. They knew he was going to be a player. I know. Everybody's Gil Brandt now. But I think it's one of those things where I would say no. I don't think it's Efton Chisholm yet. I don't think it's Efton Chisholm time. I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed in my opinion, but I don't think we're there yet. I think you still need to give Pop a chance to be a factor in this offense. I know he was non-existent yesterday, but I don't think we're there yet. I still think Douglas could be a big part of this offense. And by the way, Ken checks back in. How would you grade Alex Austin and Carlton Davis taking over the reins at corner with Gonzo out?
B-ish? B-minus?
I don't know if I'd put a grade on it. I'm not going to put a grade on it, but what I will tell you is I think they've been okay. They need to be better. Part of the reason they've been okay is Carlton Davis is not a man-to-man cover corner. He's at his best when he's a press cover 2 corner who can jam, reroute receivers, funnel them inside, play the flat, look for number two, not play the flat. Look for the second receiver into the flat. That's where he's at his best, playing a trail technique and make plays on the ball if there's no threat to the flat. He plays with really good instincts. He supports the run. That's more his game. So in a lot of ways, he's been playing out of position in a sense, if you will, and not so much in terms of where he's lining up, but in terms of his style. I think he's a better corner in a scheme like that, where it's either a two zone, two trap, maybe some kind of a blended coverage where he's squatting on his side. That's where I think he's at his best. With Alex Austin, I mean, look, could he be playing better? Yeah, but remember, going into the season, we thought he was going to be maybe your nickel or dime corner, and maybe he'd play on the outside to the X receiver side, depending on the package and the down and distance. I mean, obviously, we didn't think he'd be playing as much as he is. So could he be better? Yes, but I don't think he's been terrible either.
No, I was just saying he is what he is. And if you have Gonzalez, the secondary now slots the way they should. Nobody has to play extra or to be in a different role, I should say, than they were originally anticipated. So having Gonzalez there makes life easier on everybody else. I think they've been fine for what they are.
Yeah, I mean, the corners are not my concern. I think my bigger concern is the safety position. I mean, and again, old friend Jabril Peppers will be in town this week. Of course, he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. But do you have enough there with Craig Woodson and Jalen Hawkins and Kyle Duggar? And again, with Duggar, we don't really know what his role is. He starts yesterday, he plays, and then he doesn't play. They're still trying to figure out how to use him. I mean, the whole thing is still a mishmash in many ways on the back end.
I remember one hit from Duggar yesterday. I think it was the first quarter, and then I didn't see him again or notice him again.
Yeah, and it's been weird with him. The whole thing has been weird. I mean, again, and I'll maintain what I've said all along. I don't think he's a great scheme fit. And they know that, and they're seeing that, and they know that they couldn't trade him because no one would take on that contract. Or if they did take on that contract, the compensation wouldn't be what the Patriots wanted. And as we've talked about, the Patriots are not going to be willing to eat money. So, in essence, they are stuck with Duggar. And so they're trying to make it work with him. I still think, and our friend John Lyon said this, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, I still think with Duggar, your best bet is to probably use him the way they used Adrian Phillips, as more of a screwed-down box safety that allows you to get an A-man front to support the run, but also allows you to bring pressure. That might be the best way to use him. We haven't seen that yet from them, but I suspect we could in the coming weeks because, again, he's going to be on your roster. Unless you're willing to eat money or take 50 cents on the dollar, you're not. You're going to have him through this season, and then you're going to have to make a decision on him in the offseason. But I think he's here for the time being. Ken checks back in after being a go-to guy in week one. What happened to tight end Hunter Henry yesterday? I seen more Hooper, not much with Henry. It's a good question. And again, thanks for checking in, Ken. And that's kind of been my issue with Hunter Henry. I feel like he's very sporadic. He runs hot and cold. Every 2 or 3 weeks, he'll have that eye-popping game where he'll catch 6 passes for 80 yards, might get you a touchdown, and then he disappears for 2 or 3 weeks. So his performance, especially last year and so far this year, has been very sporadic. And it's hard to figure out. Hooper was featured more yesterday, but I don't understand it. I don't understand why he's so sporadic in terms of his performance. Part of it is the usage, but I also think part of it might be him. He's not a guy that you can do a lot with in terms of displacing him and creating matchups to where you'll want to get him the ball.
So it's funny. I actually asked Mike Vrabel about Hunter Henry today. He became the fifth, or the franchise's, let me reword this, moved into fifth place all time for tight ends for the franchise, which is crazy when you think about Gronk and Ben Coates and, Ben Watson.
Russ Francis,
for Russ Francis. He said, I think Hunter's just reliable. He's consistent. You can always, any adjustment or tweaks that you make or you may have in the game or game plan or scheme, he's able to handle. So I think there's just, to your point, he's not always going to pop, but you don't have to worry about him. You know what I mean? So I think there's...
But you want to get more out of him. Remember now, when they signed him in 2021, you signed him because at that time he was a top 10 tight end in the league, probably in the 8 to 10 range, but he was a top 10 tight end in the league. And then you gave him a new contract last offseason. And the expectation is that he's going to consistently produce. And quite frankly, he hasn't done that. So while that's a very nice thing for Vrabel to say, the reality is Henry's performance on a week-to-week basis doesn't match Vrabel's comments, in my opinion.
So I agree. But then this also, for me, goes back to you should have drafted one.
Well, you could have, yes. I mean, last year was a stellar tight end class. They didn't take one. Well, they took Jaheim Bell in the 7th round. But my point is, you weren't going to draft one this year, realistically speaking. Offensive tackle was too much of a need. Could you have gone tight end in the 2nd or 3rd round? Yeah, I mean, there was depth at the position. We're certainly seeing that with guys like Harold Fannin in Cleveland. But I think Hunter Henry is fine. I just think he needs to be a more consistent performer. It can't just be every 2 or 3 weeks you get a nice performance out of him and then he disappears. You need to get that on a bi-weekly basis minimum, not so much to validate his contract, but to validate his stature as a guy who, realistically speaking, is probably top 15 at the position. If he's going to be that, he's got to produce more than he is. And we know how important the tight end position is in Josh McDaniels' offense, right?
Well,
we've seen that for years.
I was just going to say, I feel like that's coming because of the offense. And again, we talked a lot about, May getting used to the offense, but other guys do too. So I'm not worried about Hunter Henry yet. I do think that production will come at some point.
Yeah. Well, you hope. And again, look, they're a tough offense to defend when they're in 12 personnel. And I've said this forever. I've been a defensive coordinator. 12 personnel is a bitch to defend. 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 1 back. You can do so much as an offensive coordinator from a formation matchup standpoint. It really puts the defense in a bind. So you hope that with the 2 of them on the field, and we know McDaniels likes to play in 12 a lot, you hope that they get a lot out of those guys. You are watching / listening to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Kevin Stone, who loves to eat, what did you call it? What was it earlier? Fruit snacks?
Well, fruit snacks, but we now go a half hour later, so dinner's all thrown off.
Yeah, why are we doing that, by the way?
You tell me.
Well, you tell me. I was sitting here for 10 minutes waiting on you. So tonight, you tell me.
I was waiting for you to tell me when to go on.
Usually what do you mean you were waiting for me to tell you when to go on? Just go on. You have the link. What am I, your father? I don't have to be like, Kevy, come on, Kevy, jump on. We have a show to do, buddy. Come on, little man.
When I'm on, I now wait for 10, 15 minutes for you to hop on. So
look,
people don't care.
I appreciate you giving me the courtesy, 8:05, 8:10.
Yeah.
But listen, this thing should be this thing should be leaving the runway at 8:15. Okay, we shouldn't be going on at 8:25 because then you know what it'll turn into when this thing is over. It'll be, well, why were we up so late? Yeah. So we both become wusses and we become like, old men in a nursing home. I'm tired. I gotta go to bed. Nah, I need a fruit snack. In any event, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you're in the market to sell your current home, purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance, give our good buddy Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, Stone, we're going to pivot here and talk some college football. And by the way, Ken Matthias checks back in. Supposed to be 8 every Monday. It's been late. LOL. Ken Matthias is now shitting on us, Stone. Anything you want to say to Ken?
In fairness, when we tweeted out, we have been saying slightly after 8. So
okay. So yes, in the past it was a hard time, 8 o'clock. We've been giving ourselves a grace period by saying slightly after 8 o'clock. So, but I don't think Matthias is wrong. I think he's right. I mean, technically the show is supposed to start at 8 o'clock, whatever. We own New England Football Journal. We run the show. We know you guys like it. We appreciate the support. We appreciate you staying with us. So thank you for your patience tonight. All right, as I mentioned, Stone, you ready to talk some college football and talk about the debacle that was the Boston College football game on Saturday night?
Sure, might as well get it out of the way now.
Yeah, we've got a couple of debacles to talk about this week in the college portion of the show. 30-20 loss to Stanford. Now, a couple of things before I let you take over here as the resident BC guy. One, They were 14.5-point favorites. The entire week, they were 13.5-point favorites. Then on Saturday, it jumped up to 14.5-point favorites. Coming into the game, Stanford had sucked ass through 2 weeks. So how does this happen? As the resident Boston College guy here, please explain to me how they can go all the way out to the left coast and lose to a team that was 0-2, was not competitive, and not only lose, but they lose by double digits as a 14.5-point favorite. How does this happen?
So as a coach, you know the easy answer here is turnovers. 3 turnovers killed them. Particularly when the turnovers came. Look, they're up 17-6. It was a bad start, but you find a way to get momentum and go up 17-6. All right, we're fine. They're driving to either go up 20-6 or at best case scenario, 24-6 heading into halftime. Dylan Wanigan throws a pick 6. All right, fine, it is what it is. Suddenly, you turn them over again. It's now 20-20 at the half. And you know this better than anybody. If you have a team believing they can win, they're probably going to win. Stanford went into halftime.
By the way, not to cut you off, what do I always say about momentum in football? I don't think you're going to get this, by the way, but what do I always say about momentum in football?
I hate being tested. I don't remember.
Okay, well, it's that Waltham High education.
Yeah, sure. New England College, too.
Yeah. Well, what I always say about momentum is, look, football's not basketball. There's no 10-0 runs in football. 9 out of 10 times, when the momentum goes to the other sideline, I don't give a damn what level it is, NFL, college, high school. When the momentum goes across the way, you can't get it back 9 out of 10 times. It's going to stay over there. So when you're up 17-6 and it's 20-20 at the half, momentum is firmly on their side now, and there's a good chance it's going to stay over there. So it's a hard thing to recapture in football. Like I said, this isn't basketball. There's no 10-0 runs in football where you can get back into a game. Once you lose momentum, you typically lose the game. At least, if not 9 out of 10 times, in my experience, 30 years being in this game, I would say 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah. So, look, third quarter, late in the third, I believe it was 3:23 to go. You're at the goal line with the ball. Turbo Richard fumbles. So you're killing yourself multiple times. And Mike Vrabel has talked a lot about this. You can't win unless you eliminate bad football and take advantage of other teams' bad football. Stanford took advantage of BC's poor football. One play after that, they ripped off a 75-yard run, had a touchdown. It's 27-20. Game's pretty much over at that point. You can see it on the sideline, which is also the most troubling thing to come out of this. You had Reed Harris calling guys out after the game. He point blank said, it felt like guys runners walked in as they should have been when we got out to California. That's not good, especially in week 3, and especially from a younger guy. Owen McGowan, who we know very well as a captain, said it's on the leaders to make sure guys are walked in ready to go. So is there a leadership problem already? I don't think there is. We know the captains very well on that team. They're all really good kids. But you gave up 200 plus yards on the ground. You couldn't tackle again. The offensive line is now banged up again. Jude Bowery left the game. Dwayne Alec left the game. You were already down 3 defensive backs, your top 3. So this might snowball. And they're on a
bye. The bye week comes at the right time. So it comes at a great time for them.
I was just going to say, for an early bye, you couldn't have timed it any better for them. Now, I also find it interesting, and you know this, during a bye week, we'll usually have one day or, at least a Zoom or something. They're shutting the doors this week. They sent an email out today to the media. There is no availability at all. So they are walking in and saying it's all about us this week, which from our standpoint, I don't love because it makes our job harder. From their standpoint, I think it's a great decision. Shut the doors, get everything locked in and sort of refocused on yourselves. Look, I still think this offense is really good. I feel like most people.
See, I think that's part of the problem. I think that's part of the problem. I think too many guys on this team, and I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna talk out of turn here. I don't have inside information. I'm not in the building every day. Okay, I don't talk to people about Boston College football off to the side. But from the outside looking in, one of the potential problems that could exist with this football team is You have too many guys that I think read their own press clippings at the beginning of the season.
Very
I
fair.
think we pumped the tires of this football team a little too much. And I think that the last 2 weeks, some of the flaws with this football team were exposed. That's what I think. And look, some of it is injuries. You've had a fair share of injuries the last 2 weeks, but that loss to Michigan State 2 weeks ago stung this football team, and they didn't recover from it last week. And I think to a degree, part of the problem here is maybe this football team isn't as good as we thought they were going to be, especially on offense. Maybe they're not as good as we think they're going to be. They haven't been able to really run the ball. The passing game hasn't been as explosive as we thought. It was explosive at times against Michigan State. You didn't see it last week. We knew the defense, particularly the front seven, could potentially be a problem. A lot of their warts have shown up so far through 3 games, but I think part of it is we might have overestimated just how good they were going to be, especially after they blew out Fordham after week 1. I mean, you were supposed to do that to them.
Of course.
I think since then, they might not be as good as we thought. Now, all that being said, bye week comes at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Bill O'Brien is the coach. If there's anybody that's going to fix this and turn this thing around, it's him. And the other part of it is, yes, you have a tough schedule coming up, but they could still very easily win 7 or 8 games and get to a quality bowl game. If nothing else, they win their standard 6 or 7.
Well, so I was just going to say, before I get to that, the running game is a problem. And, I was
and it
really
wasn't
high.
supposed to be. Jordan McDonald, Turbo Richard, Alex Broom. You have plenty of talent there.
I was going to say, there's 6 deep in that room. Yeah. Legitimately 6 deep. Now, the offensive line hasn't been great in the running game. I think pass protection's been above average, if not outstanding. Dylan Wanigan has had all day to throw for most of his time back there. It's the running game that's absolutely killing them. You've gotten production from the tight ends.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, I mean, you've gotten production from your wide receivers, who I still think are a great trio in the ACC. Defensively, it's the tackling. And
it's the tackling, and the secondary hasn't been as good as we thought.
But let me ask you this about the tackling, because they did work on it last week, but only 10 minutes, and it was a drill. You can't get better at live tackling. At least it feels this way, unless you tackle live, correct?
It's hard to tackle live nowadays, man, especially once you get into the season. You've got to listen, I'm going to go in the other direction. I think one of the most overrated things we talk about in football is live tackling at practice. And there's so many coaches out there right now saying to themselves, this guy's a phony, he's a turd, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I do, because no coach who honestly assesses his football team is going to say we need to beat the shit out of them during the week of practice, especially once you get into the middle and later portion of the season. No coach is going to say that. So I'm glad you brought this up, but the reality is once you get out of camp, you've got to take the foot off the gas when it comes to the tackling at practice. You might do more of it at the beginning of the season when you're doing more individual periods, but as you go into the middle and later portion of the season, where maybe you're changing your practice schedule, maybe the emphasis isn't as much on individual, you don't tackle as much. And now look, I think one of the things they're going to do this week, I suspect, is they're going to tackle a lot because they need to. Patriots should tackle a lot too. But I think as the season goes on, Kevin, if they're still not tackling well, I hate to say it, it's who you are. I don't think beating the hell out of them in practice is going to change too much.
So, and don't get me wrong, I don't mean for them to literally beat the bag out of each other and go full speed, but there's only so much you can do, tackling a tackling dummy or tackling a giant pad, which, again, I've seen them do at the beginning of practice for about 10, 15 minutes all of last week. That's why I asked, just because, again, I know you have injuries and I know you got to take care of your team, but at some point, the lack of, I guess, working at full speed, it just feels like they're catching up to them. But
well, I think part of it is if it's catching up to them, then that means that they didn't do enough of it in camp. That's when it shows up at the beginning of the year. If you didn't tackle enough in camp, if you didn't do enough, in terms of tackling stations and form fitting and everything else, then yeah, it shows up early in the season when you can't tackle.
The funny thing is, I thought they had a really physical camp. I thought they did a lot of it. So that's what's most alarming. And we haven't even talked about special teams yet. Punting is an issue again. There's got to be a point where Andy Quinn, the kid from Ireland, gets a shot over Seamus Florio. Kicking has been great. Luca Lombardo has been a revelation for them, especially because in camp you didn't have a kicker. All three of their kickers were not making field goals throughout camp, and now Luca Lombardo is just taking the job and ran with it. And kickoffs were better the other day too. You didn't give up any returns, so I feel like it's all fixable stuff, but it's all stuff we didn't expect them to not be good at. Like that's the most confusing thing about where they're at right now. It's also worth noting it's 1-2. Like it's not like they're 4 and whatever. You still have a lot of time
Four and
left.
four.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't
Um,
either.
but
It's
my
not
point,
like you're 500.
no, my point is there's a lot of season to go.
Right.
So
That's where
ultimately,
you were
yeah,
going with it.
yeah, but it can be fixed. But that game in particular has a lot of people worried. Now, I've seen a lot of really dumb comments that Bill O'Brien should go already. This is the
Yeah.
same thing we talked about with Don Brown. What are you going to do better? You're not getting any better right now than Bill
Well,
O'Brien.
look, the reality is this is a game that at the beginning of the year, even throughout the offseason, we felt that they should win.
Well,
And
I
so
had
when
them
you
losing
lose
this
a
game.
game you should win, naturally the stupidity in the fan base comes out, and that's what you're hearing here.
I will say I had them losing this game. I hated the spot from the jump. Just going out there and especially going on
Oh, I,
Friday
I
night.
didn't. I didn't. I
No,
mean,
no, no.
Stanford's a
I'm gonna.
mess, man. I mean, they're on an interim head coach, and granted, it's Frank Reich, and congratulations to him, I guess, for getting his first win. But no, this is a game you should win. Yeah, it sucks going
Oh,
out there, but this is a game you should win. Now, in 2 weeks
oh,
from now, if you tell me that they could lose to Cal's playing has a good quarterback. Wilcox is a good coach. That wouldn't surprise me. But this is a game you probably should have won. That Stanford program is pretty downtrodden right now.
no, 100 they should have won the game. I just never thought they were going to. I just had a gut feeling about this spot from day one. Besides that, you're 14-point favorites, man. Like that cannot happen, especially to lose by double digits.
No,
And
think about all
really,
the people that lost money on them. That cannot happen.
no, and that fourth
I'm
quarter,
sure O'Brien that's weighing on him. All the people that put the action on the Eagles and got nothing in return.
so that fourth quarter though, they didn't quit, but something felt wrong. And when you have players saying guys weren't locked in, and coach always reminds us that it's a business trip, but guys weren't ready. That's when you start to get worried, because if people are pointing the finger, and it just sort of came into my mind now before we move on. At the end of during his post game press conference, Bill O'Brien said he told the team, look, if you don't want to be here, then go. Well, there's a transfer portal. Guys will go if they don't want to be here. So I think that messaging has to kind
Where
of be
though? Where?
well. It
I mean,
doesn't
no, no,
matter.
no. I don't want to. I don't want to spend too much time on this because
No,
we're pushing 50 minutes here, and we got to talk about some other
yeah.
programs as well. But where? I'm so sick and tired of hearing that guys are going to go. Okay, Greg, go. Where are you going to go? Where do you think you're going to go? That's a better fit for you than Boston College from an education standpoint, from a developmental standpoint, playing in the ACC, having a shot to potentially play in the college football playoff. What, you're going to leave Boston College and then go play FCS football? Or you're going to leave Boston College and go to a group of 5 school? Like, where are you going to go? So
Well,
the reason I say that to you is I'm just so sick and tired of hearing people talk about how much leverage the players have. If the players had so much leverage, there wouldn't be thousands of them sitting in the portal. So
I hear you.
fine, go. Good luck, because let me tell you something. In about a week from now, you're going to wish you never left. So I don't think it's that bad right now that guys are going to jump ship.
So I'm not saying it's going to happen now, and I completely agree with you on all of that. However, there
It's
is
going to
that
happen at UCLA and Virginia Tech because
yeah,
they fired
yeah,
their coaches.
and that window is now open for 30 days. So I'm not saying they're going to go now, but I am saying in the off season, I could see some of their more talented guys that are still younger
Sure. Yeah.
saying, "Well, screw this." I'm not saying right now, no.
Yeah. No.
I'm saying in the off season, kids will say, "Well, fine." Yeah, that's the only thing I would worry about. But look, I still think they're going to win 7 games or so. But I'm not. My confidence is now severely wavering after that performance, and I feel like a lot of the fan base feels the same way.
Well, there's another fan base in New England that's probably pretty disappointed, and that's the UConn fan base.
Oh, I think I'm going to
Huskies,
go to UMass.
no. Huskies losing to Delaware 44-41 in overtime. And just like Boston College, Kevin, in my opinion, This is a bad loss for Jim Mora's football team.
This is
Plain
worse.
and simple. Their defense, which coming into the season, there were question marks because of all the experience that you graduated that moved on from the program. There were question marks about this defense. 2 weeks ago, they go up to Syracuse and they shut the Orange down for 3.5 quarters, and they play at a high level. You're thinking, man, we know the offense has a potential to be pretty good with Fagnano, Bell, and Edwards. If the defense is playing like this team could legitimately win 9 or 10 games. Nope. They come back this week and they lay a total egg against a first-year FBS program. They lay a total egg against a program that the week before got their doors blown off at San Diego State. I don't understand this performance. The offense was as good as we expect them to be. They scored 41. You get 41 points out of your offense, you probably win 90-something% of the time. The fact that they lost this game has to be super discouraging for Jim Mora, super discouraging for this fan base. It illustrates that as much success as they've had under Mora, the inconsistency of this program to stack seasons and be good year in and year out and put itself in a position where it can get into a conference is a big part of the problem here. This is a game they should have won. Losing this game is a bad look for this football program. And no, ladies and gentlemen, I did not put money on this game. I'm just telling it like it is. This is a terrible loss for UConn football.
I did, and they screwed me, but that's not the point. I think it's worse.
You're the degenerate gambler here, Stone. I'm not.
I think it's worse than the BC loss for every reason.
I agree with you. I agree 100%.
And to make it worse, they had a chance to win the game in regulation with a 4th and 9 stop. You get called for pass interference. You give up a drive, and I believe it was a 44-yard field goal, whatever it was, to force overtime. You get the ball in overtime. You set up for 3, and then immediately let them just walk down the field, or 25 yards. But you let them walk in the end zone, ball game. Talk about can't happen. Again, to everything you said, if you're trying to join a conference, you're trying to instill confidence in the fan base. You're trying to get more NIL money. You're trying to do a lot of things. And to do that after losing to Syracuse in overtime, that's a huge step back. And
it's
now,
a huge step back, especially for a program. Look, UConn will always be a basketball school.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea is you want your football program to be in a place where it's in the conversation, where it can drive the wagon along with hoops to get you into another conference. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I know the Big East basketball people don't want to hear this, but the reality is if UConn football is good, they're going to go to a conference that wants them in both sports, not just basketball. Of course, they're going to want the basketball programs. That's a given. But if the football program is good and you now can go into a conference as a joint venture of sorts, that's huge. And no offense to the Big East, but the Big East is not what it used to be. Okay, it's not the conference that it was in hoops anymore. And yes, while it still has cachet, the reality is if you can get into even the Big 12, let's say if that conversation started up again, if your football program is good enough, they're the ones that are going to drive that process even more so than basketball. But you can't lose to Delaware and do that. No one's going to take you serious.
No, and you have Ball State coming in, who's another very winnable game. You lose this one, but now they might not even be a bowl team. And we talked about the roller coaster. You mentioned the improvement, making a couple bowl games, but they had that one down year after that, the original bowl appearance. This could be the same type of season. And now it's, well, what are we? And to your point, the conference is looking at this. Well, why would we want UConn if we don't know that they're going to be a 500 team at least? So that's a massive step back, to say the least. But I do think they bounce back this week. If not, now we have some serious problems.
No, they'll bounce back. I suspect that they'll beat Ball State and get to 500, but it's still a bad loss for a program that's got that has had such positive momentum. URI takes care of business against Holy Cross. I mean, it was 9-7. It's a big win for the Rams. They improved to 3-0. Somehow they dropped to 7 in this week's FCS poll. Holy Cross 0-3. Disappointing loss for Dan Kern and his squad. It's interesting because I said this last week. I also said it on the college football preview show. I'll echo it. They could very easily now be 3-0. I mean, the margin of error is so thin. you almost have to feel for Holy Cross because, like I said, they could also be undefeated. So
Good.
they played tough, but again, the offense is really struggling right now for the Crusaders.
Yeah, Cal Swanson, the quarterback, has struggled, but good news is none of them have been conference games. The 3 losses are by combined 7 points.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
Like I said, they could very easily be 3-0.
yeah. And one of those was against an FBS program in NIU. I think it was NIU. Um,
It was.
yeah.
That's who they lost to 1917 in week
Yes.
1.
So, and look, to hold URI, that explosive offense to 9 points is insane. Defense played outstanding. On the flip side for URI, to be able to grind out a win like that against a good program on the road speaks volumes. So I think it was a good win for URI, but offensively, it's a little troubling that team couldn't score against score more than 9 points. But just a classic kind of slugfest between two good, really New England programs. I still think Holy Cross is going to be right there for the Patriot League. I absolutely believe that. And I think URI can keep this rolling, but you can now tell teams are giving them their best shot with the target on their back now.
Yeah, and UNH, we mentioned Ball State earlier, losing a tough one, 34-29 on the road. Certainly the Wildcats played well enough to win, and they deserve to win, losing in the fourth quarter, but they come back. They come back to New Hampshire this week. They're on the road to take on Dartmouth in the Granite Bowl on Saturday. Our Alan Wessels is going to be there for that one. You mentioned UMass earlier. I mean, what is there to say? They lose 47-7 to Iowa. Barry and I were talking on the college football preview show on Wednesday, and I believe at that time Iowa was favored by 35.5. And I told people, I said, listen, from a gambling perspective, Iowa's offense traditionally has struggled under Kirk Ferentz. You might actually want to take UMass as the dog, with the expectation being that Iowa would probably win by 28 to 32 points. No, they win by 40 and they cover. And UMass didn't play some starters, but in the end, it's not a surprising score, right? I mean,
no,
but kind of thought it would be this way.
No, but right before the half, I think just under 2 minutes to go, it was 23-7. They had a 4th and 2 at their own 49. And Grant Jordan just missed a wide open slant. It would have either gone for a big gain or a touchdown. You cut that thing to 23-14 at the half or 23-10. You know, they're not going to win that game, but who knows? At least you have some positive momentum. They're on a bye this week. They desperately need it. But we keep saying it. They're still in the MAC. Like, they could still salvage something out of this. I know it sounds sort of far-fetched right now. I think
you said it, not me.
Offensively, I think there's going to be a few flashes. I mean, you saw a little bit against Iowa, albeit a very, very small sample of what they can do when they're actually executing. But yeah, that was pretty much expected. It is what it is at this point. Real quick on UNH, they gave up rushing touchdowns of 40, 43, and 70 yards in the first half. Give up over 200 yards rushing. I know it's an FBS school, but if they're going to be the team we think they are, and they're still ranked, they're ranked 23rd this week, that's got to get cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryant beating Bentley 42-6. The Bulldogs returned to CAA action this week when they traveled to Campbell. The upset of the weekend was Stonehill going on the road in Orono and beating Maine 13-10. I got to tell you, I didn't see this coming, and I said this on X, and I really believe it. I think that this is the biggest win in Stonehill college football history. And I know our good buddy at NEC Blitz chimed in and said, no, it's when they beat Duquesne 2 years ago. No, I beg to differ. Look, you went on the road and beat a CAA opponent. A Maine team that went 5-7 last year, recruits well, has talent, has one of the best quarterbacks in the conference back in Carter Peavy. To go on the road and get a win like that for Eli Gardner's squad is huge. And I don't see, again, that Duquesne win 2 years ago was a big win. But at the end of the day, Kevin, this is a bigger win in my opinion. They have Penn on Saturday in Easton, another big game for the Skyhawks. But man, this is a huge win for a program. Let's not forget that only won one game last year. For them to go up to Orono and win that game, it speaks to the job that Gardner and his staff did this offseason to upgrade the talent.
Well, especially the way they won it. It was either 4th and 12 or 4th and 21. I had that number mixed up. And he had a 34-yard touchdown pass with like a minute and a half to go. That just shows some balls. And like you said, especially on the road. On the flip side, that's a really bad loss for Maine.
A
Um,
very bad loss.
especially at
Especially
home.
because you were 7-7 with Liberty going into the fourth quarter
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, and you went toe-to-toe with William and Mary, losing 28-27. I mean, then you come back home, and then this isn't a knock on Stonehill. So to our viewers and listeners, please don't misconstrue what I'm about to say, but this is a very bad loss for Jordan Stevens'
Yeah.
team. This is a game you need to win. This is your get right game. This was a game that's supposed to get you back on track. Not getting this win, it looks like Maine's going to be in for a long season.
I was going to say, after last year, you thought, and they thought this was another step forward.
Yeah.
Now 0-3.
I thought that they could potentially be a 6 or 7 win team
Yeah, I
this
was
year
gonna say right
and
around
flirt
there.
with an at-large playoff bid.
Yep. And now you're 0-3 and fighting a severe uphill battle the rest of the way.
Now, Sacred Heart had a really nice come from
Huge.
behind win over Long Island. Of course, Long Island 2 weeks ago beat Eastern Michigan. Huge win for Mark Knopfrey's squad. They hit the road this week to go to Norfolk State. Merrimack going down to Kennesaw State, played tough, losing 27-13. They come back home to take on Central Connecticut State University this week. CCSU coming off a 31-7 win over St. Francis, their first NEC win of the season. Ivy League kicks off this weekend. You've got Dartmouth hosting UNH, Yale hosting Holy Cross, and Harvard is on the road at Stetson. Brown is also on the road at Georgetown. So we're going to have Ivy League football this weekend as well.
It's about time. And you and I both love the Ivy League. It's arguably the best.
Now it officially feels like football season.
Yeah, right.
For me, it's not officially football season until I'm at an Ivy League game on a Saturday. You see the leaves are starting to change.
Yep.
The tailgate, the crowd. Now it'll feel like football season for me.
You start scoreboard watching too, because every week we've talked about
There's
this.
no bye week.
Yeah, right,
10 straight.
Right. And again, we keep mentioning the playoffs are on the line this year as well. So that scoreboard watching in the fall is going to be even better this year.
No, absolutely. Shifting gears here now, talk a little bit of high school football. Obviously, we've got another action-packed week of high school football coming up for you. A lot of great games this past weekend, though. Obviously, we were fortunate to cover some of them. Some of the big games that we covered, and we were watching Scituate beats rival Duxbury, and it was a very good game. Our Oliver Fox was down there for that one. Game that I thought was the game of the week in many ways, Bishop Hendricken at Killingly High School. Chad Neal's Trailblazers, they're now the Trailblazers. They used to be the Redmen. Chad Neal's Trailblazers, and Stone, I knew Stone was going to shake his head. Chad Neal's Trailblazers pick up an important win against a very good Hendricken team. And in many ways, and Neal talked about this after the game, this was going to be a statement win for Killingly. It was. They ended up winning it 42-39. And for Hendricken, look, you can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, this loss isn't backbreaking by any means. I think we're going to find out more about this football team in a couple of weeks when they play Central Catholic. But nonetheless, it's a tough loss for the Hawks, but a big win for Killingly. Of course, Connecticut also kicked off this past weekend. Some of the Blue Bloods in the state picked up wins to start the season. New Canaan wins, Staples wins, Greenwich wins. So some of the heavyweights in the state were able to win. Darien won, Hand won. You had some pretty impressive performances this weekend in the Nutmeg State. As always, you had a lot of really good games here in Massachusetts as well. King Philip knocking off North Attleboro 21-7 in what was a fist fight in a phone booth. Foxborough beating Walpole. Like I said, you had a lot of really good matchups this past week. Up in New Hampshire, Bedford knocking off National South in the game of the week up there. And, of course, this week we have Bedford and Thornton Academy, which is always one of the best interstate matchups in the region. So a lot of really good high school football games last weekend, a lot of them coming up this weekend. And as always, Kevin, we'll have you covered with some of the biggest games of the week.
Yeah, I was actually over at Dexter Southfield.
Yes.
For their opener. What a great spot for a game. I don't know if you've ever been up there.
Yeah.
Just a great setting, great atmosphere. Just sort of a great view of that entire area. But they're a really good team, man. Of course, U-Haul.
Casey Day's done a great job there.
Yeah, U-Haul Anthony Hall, the well-known North Carolina commit, just a beast up front. Rory Funk, the quarterback for them, had a big day, especially on the ground. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, 150 yards total.
And that Suffield Academy team's a good program.
They were very physical. So, admittedly, I didn't know much about them being out in Connecticut, but they were very, very physical. Had some big dudes up front. Had a running back, his name has escaped me, going to Illinois
And
as
Caden
well.
Bennett.
Yes, thank you. So he was very good too. But that Dexter Southfield defense, after the first quarter, they trailed 6-2, gave up 53 yards the rest of the game. Just a dominant performance. And again, Funk was great. So Casey Day's team is going to be really, really good. And then we didn't even mention Central Catholic blew out BC High. I know BC High is down a little bit, but that's a massive win for that CC team.
It's a big win for John Sexton's team. And of course, a week earlier, they almost beat Archbishop Stepanak up in New York. So they're good. Central Catholic has arrived. It's been a couple of tough seasons there since Chuck Adamopoulos left, but I think the Red Raiders are back.
Yeah, some huge matchups this week, too. You mentioned Springfield Central at Mansfield. Albeit Everett Zavarian. We have Norwell and Situate. There's a lot of good stuff this weekend all around New England.
Yeah, absolutely. And then be remiss if I didn't mention some of the other NEPSAC games. Tabor Academy with a huge 37-6 win over Williston Northampton. Impressive performance by Jeff Moore's squad. I mean, now the conversation has to be, are they the best team in the region? And I think you can make a very sound argument for them. Certainly talking to some people, they think that that is possible. Although I will say a program like Avon Old Farms, they might have something to say about it. John Hooley's squad with an impressive 34-21 win over a very good Brunswick team on Saturday as well. I think Phillips Exeter would have something to say about it as well as St. Paul. So I'm fired up for NEPSAC football. I mean, some of the best talent in the country. There's nothing like private school football in New England. You don't find private school football at that level anywhere else in the country. It's exclusive to New England. So we're pretty fortunate that we have the NEPSAC schools and we can cover them. And again, a lot of great matchups with the realignment coming up too. BB&N, Avon Old Farms. We had Tabor Williston this week. There's a lot of really good games coming up that I think are going to showcase just how good NEPSAC football truly is. All right, Stone, final thoughts here before we wrap it up.
No, just a Hall of Fame weekend for the Patriots. Bill Parcells is finally getting in. I know you feel the same way. It's about damn time, as is Julian Edelman. So we'll have that covered all weekend too, on top of high school, college, and then the Pats on Sunday.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the importance of supporting what we do. And the best way to support us is to subscribe to New England Football Journal. For $2.99 a month, you get some of the best high school, college, and Patriots coverage in the area. And we think it's really important, especially for the high school and college kids. You know, we take a lot of pride in being all football all the time, but we can't get to games. We can't hire freelancers. We can't hire people to cover football to bring you the stories, to bring you the coverage that you want. And in order for that to happen, we need your support. So again, for $2.99 a month, you get some of the best football coverage in New England. We're all football year round. We're covering it in the winter. We're covering it in the spring. We're covering it in the summer when everyone else is covering something else. So again, please support New England Football Journal. Again, go to anyfootballjournal.com. Go over to the New England Football Journal membership tab. Click on that. And for $2.99 a month, you get to get some of the best football coverage in the area, and you get to support us and allow us. I mean, basically, Kevin will tell you, anything we make on this thing goes right back into the business. We're not rolling in the dough here. We're not making a killing on this. We're putting every penny back into the business. So we appreciate your support. And again, I can't stress it enough. Go to anyfootballjournal.com and support us. I think that you'll like what you see, and it's worth the $2.99 a month. I mean, nowadays, what are you giving up, right? A cup of coffee, 1 cup of coffee a month. You know, I mean, again, I know times are tough economically, but I think supporting something like this is vitally important, and it allows us to continue to cover as many games as possible and to find content creators that want to produce content for us. That'll do it for this week's episode of the New England Football Show. For Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe. Peace.
See ya.